wish us all the best and good mood. And it is my great pleasure to introduce you, the founder of the KiVa program, Professor Christina Salmivalli, Professor of Psychology from the University of Turku from Finland. Today we are going to discuss the architecture of bullying, the very KiVa anti-bullying program, the cornerstones of KiVa, and of course, we will have many questions, I hope, for you to be comfortable watching and listening to this webinar. And those of you who need interpretation, please identify a globe button, which is called interpretation. Choose your language channel, disable original audio, and feel comfortable. Distinguished Christina, I am passing the floor to you. And indeed, today and all these days, we have been waiting for your program to be presented to us. Thank you very much for agreeing to be with us today to make a presentation. Over to you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to be present in this event. It's a pleasure to talk to you about bullying and about our program KiVa. I'm sharing my slides now. Okay, and I guess that you can all see my slides.
Yes, perfect.
Moment. So my topic of today is sustainable bullying prevention with KiVa anti-bullying program. And as was already mentioned, my name is Christina Salmivalli. I'm a professor of psychology at the University of Turku in Finland. And my group started to develop the KiVa program 16 years ago. And we are continuously developing and improving the program to make it even more feasible and more effective. So this is the topic that I will talk about today, the KiVa program and its effects on bullying and victimization. Of course, I haven't been doing the studies alone, which I will be talking about. So this is my research group from Turku. We are even a bit bigger now than in this figure that has been the left figure that has been taken in the university, and the right one in our writing retreat in the beautiful Lake Saimaa. At the moment, however, Finland looks a bit different. So this is my hometown, Turku, from the bird's eye view. And also you can see that we have some snow and can engage in some winter activities such as skiing. So probably it has been already mentioned during this series of presentation what is usually meant by bullying, because it has a specific definition. And the most typical definition used by researchers and practitioners is that bullying is systematic aggressive behavior targeted at a person who for some reason or the other finds it difficult to defend him or herself. So the fact that these aggressive attacks are repeated is one characteristic of bullying, and the other one is the power differential. And with power differential, we can mean that the victimized child is physically less powerful or socially less powerful because, for instance, they are new students in the classroom, they don't have many friends in the classroom, they have a low status among peers, or so on. But anyway, it's like an abuse of power that the bully or bullies have more than the victimized child has. And usually we want to make the distinction that conflicts or fights that happen between two equal children are not considered bullying. How research on bullying started? As very often is the case, the art comes before the research, and also in bullying, it was first art, and in this case literature, that brought this phenomenon into attention. And in 1857, there was a novel published which was called Tom Brown's School Days. And that book told about this boy, Tom Brown, who went to a boarding school in the UK and who was there severely bullied by some more powerful boys. And it was almost 100, actually a bit more than 100 years later then that this topic of bullying was brought into systematic scientific research started by Dan Olweus, first in Sweden and later on in Norway. And Olweus' first book was published in Swedish in 1973. It was called Hackkycklingar och översittare. And this was based on the very early studies that he had done in Stockholm area in Sweden. And actually what is interesting in this very first book, or this very first scientific study on bullying, Olweus only had boys as participants in the study. So there were like 700 boys from the area of Stockholm, because Olweus thought that there is no bullying among girls, and that's why there is no point in doing research on bullying among girls. But today we know a bit better, and we know that also girls can engage in bullying behavior. Nowadays, bullying is studied almost everywhere in the world, and new countries are joining in this all the time. And we know from global studies that about 10 to 40% of school-age children and adolescents are victimized by their peers at school. We also know that bullying can have severe short-term and long-term negative consequences. So it really causes enormous human suffering, but it also causes many costs for societies. And we could say that it's a really serious human rights violation, child rights violation, but also a significant public health issue due to the long-term consequences it can have on the mental health, even on physical health, employment, and so on, of those individuals who have been involved. And now already quite many long-term studies have done where students involved in bullying have been followed into their adulthood. And we know, for instance, that being bullied as a child at school leads to anxiety, depression, and loneliness. And also in adulthood, these individuals still have an increased risk for depression, low self-esteem, and they often find it difficult to trust other people. For individuals who have bullied others, they learn to use aggression as a means to get what they want if we don't intervene in bullying when they engage in it in their school days. And we know that those individuals who bullied others in their school days are at risk for aggressive behavior and criminal offending, even in their adulthood. There are also students who are both bullying others and victimized themselves, and these are often called bully victims. They are quite a small group, but they have both internalizing problems, such as depression and low self-esteem, and externalizing problems, such as aggressive behavior. In my group, we are right now doing a longitudinal study. We are collecting data from young adults who participated in our large-scale study on bullying in 2007. And now we contacted them again. They are now young adults between 20 and 30 years of age. And we already know that also in our data, we find that those young adults who were bullied in their school time are at larger risk for mental health problems. They have more difficulties in their relationships with their romantic partners. They also experience more victimization in their workplace. And those who were engaging in bullying in their school days, they have more convictions, more crimes now as young adults, and they are also on average less educated than students who were not involved in bullying. And also those who were bully victims in their school days, now as young adults, they are also less educated and they engage more in criminal behaviors than non-involved individuals. At least in Finland and in many other countries as well, if we look at the media reports on bullying, we might imagine that bullying has really moved from schoolyard to cyberspace, because cyberbullying is something that is discussed a lot, maybe most of all forms of bullying. So we could imagine, based on those news, that cyberbullying is the most frequent form of bullying in the children's lives. However, according to research, this is not the truth. If we look at this figure here, we can see percentage of students who experience different forms of bullying. And we can see that actually cyberbullying, which is the last one on the right side of the figure, is really the least frequent form of these 9 different forms of bullying that we have assessed, whereas verbal bullying is the most common one, experienced by more than 11% of students. So actually cyberbullying is experienced only by 2 to 3% of students, whereas verbal bullying is much more common, social isolation coming next, spreading nasty rumors about peers, and also physical bullying. They all come before cyberbullying. However, a child or adolescent who is bullied by peers is usually bullied in multiple ways, not only in one way or the other. But most typical form of bullying, almost all studies done in whichever country, almost all studies indicate that verbal bullying is really the most common among both boys and girls. And often this verbal bullying takes the form of public ridicule of someone. So someone is being called names or embarrassed in front of the peer group. If we think about a typical bullying situation, it really doesn't look like this, but rather it looks like this. We know that in 80% of all the bullying incidents, there are bystanders, other peers present. And this is what I have focused on in my studies during the 30 years that I have been doing research on bullying, how the bystanders behave when they witness bullying happening, and how these bystander behaviors might play a role in the emergence and in the maintenance of bullying. We have done very many studies on this, and we know that despite their anti-bullying attitudes, many students, when they are together with others in the group, they behave in ways which maintain or even fuel the bullying behavior. For instance, some of these peer bystanders are standing by and just watching without doing anything to intervene in the mean behaviors. Some of the students reinforce the bully. This means that they provide different social rewards. For instance, they are laughing at what the bullies are saying, and they are encouraging the bullying behavior. And some students might be assisting the bully. For instance, they may join in the bullying even if they didn't start it themselves, but they follow the example by the aggressive bullying perpetrators, and they also join in bullying and assist them in the bullying behavior. In my first published study on bullying, I really focused on the participant roles, as I called them. And this study was published already in 1996, so very many years ago. But here I looked at the students' typical behaviors when they witnessed someone being bullied. And what was found was that about 8% of this is a figure of 6th graders, so about 12 years of age. And we found in this study that while 8% of the students could be identified as bullies and 12% were the victimized ones, there were as many as 20% of students who were reinforcing and rewarding the bullies' behaviors. And there were 7% of students who assisted the bullies in their aggressive attacks. And 1/4 of students, 24%, were outsiders or silent witnesses of bullying. They knew what is going on, but they didn't want to do anything to change the situation. And luckily, there were also students, about 17% in this study, who tried to support and defend peers who were victimized by others. Of course, it's a good question why bystanders don't intervene, why they rather join in bullying behavior or laugh when they see bullying. There can be different reasons for this, and one reason which is often mentioned by children themselves is the fear of becoming the next victim. They are worried that if they try to do something, they might be bullied the next. There can also be fear of losing status in the peer group. There can be peer pressure. Students want to follow the example of other students. And because bullying children are often powerful and they may even be popular students in the group, their example is followed. There is also a process that we call moral disengagement. This is a thought process by which the aggressive behaviors are justified. For instance, students who are joining in the bullying or engaging in bullying may be thinking, this is not bullying, it is just a joke. Or they may be seeing the victimized child as deserving the aggressive behavior. Or they may be thinking that I'm just doing something little, others are doing much worse things than I am, so this is not so severe. And we know that how the bystanders respond when they see bullying happening, it really matters. We have studied this in several research projects, and in one project we found out that in the short term, those victimized students who are defended or supported by at least one classmate, they are much better adjusted than the undefended victims. For instance, they have a higher self-esteem and they feel less depressed. But also in the long term, in a study where we interviewed adults who had been victimized in their school days, and we were asking about the most negative memories related to bullying. The most negative memories were not the mean words or the mean acts by the bullies, but actually what they remembered the most was the feeling that no one cares, because everyone knew what is happening, everyone saw that they were bullied frequently, but the peers didn't seem to care at all. Also at the classroom level, the way the bystanders respond to bullying matter. We know that in classrooms where bystanders tend to reinforce and reward the bullies' behaviors, bullying occurs more frequently. So bystander responses really have an effect on this. And we also know that students who are vulnerable, who have some risk factor for victimization, such as social anxiety, they are more likely to end up victimized in classrooms where there is a lot of reinforcing of bullying from part of the classmates. This figure shows this. So we know that social anxiety is a risk factor for victimization. This means that not all students have equal likelihood of being bullied, but those who are more socially anxious are more likely to end up victimized. However, these 4 lines here in the figure represent different classrooms and the association between social anxiety and victimization in these classrooms. And the line, the line here below above the others represents classrooms where the level of reinforcing the bullying behavior is very high. And we can see that in such classrooms, the association between social anxiety and victimization is much stronger than in classrooms where there is less reinforcing behavior. And in classrooms where reinforcing the bully's behavior is very low, there is almost no association between social anxiety and victimization. So this really means that whether social anxiety leads to being bullied depends on the classroom context, and it depends on the level of reinforcing of the bully's behavior by the bystanders. So based on all these studies, I argue that we don't necessarily need to change the victimized students, making them less vulnerable, because these vulnerability factors like social anxiety don't lead to bullying in all kinds of classrooms. Instead, if we try to influence the behaviors of bystanders, this can reduce the rewards gained by the bullies, and consequently, it can affect their motivation to bully others in the first place. However, it's not enough just to influence bystanders, but also the victimized students need to feel that they are heard and helped by the adults at school, and the bullies need to be confronted for their unacceptable behaviors. So we need both universal actions targeting the bystanders and all students in classrooms, and we need some indicated actions targeting the students who are directly involved in bullying. So the universal actions means actions that are targeted at all students, and their main aim is to prevent bullying from happening. And we need indicated actions targeted at bullies and victims in particular, and they are really aiming to stop bullying that has been detected. And we had this idea in mind when we started to develop the KiVa anti-bullying program in 2006. How did the development of KiVa start? There was really a lot of societal attention to bullying in Finland in the beginning of 1990s. So there was a lot of media discussion and other kind of discussion in the society about what should be done about bullying. And consequently, there were some changes in the legislation in the Finnish school laws. So in 1998, it was stated in the law that each student has a right for a safe learning environment. And this was further amended in 2003 to state that each education provider needs to have a policy or action plan against bullying. However, now the schools were told by law that they have to do something. This led to a situation where each school was developing their own policy or action plan, and everyone kind of started from the scratch, and there were very many different ideas and very many types of policies to tackle bullying. And we can ask whether this is a good use of resources, because it really takes a lot of resources to start from the beginning and develop such action plans in each school separately. Also, nobody really knew whether some or any of these policies or action plans are effective. And then this is a national survey that has been repeated since 1996 in Finland about the prevalence of students who are repeatedly bullied. And you can see that after these legislative changes, the level of the proportion of students who were repeatedly victimized by their peers was not decreasing. On the contrary, it was slightly increasing over the years. So it seemed that these legislative changes alone were not enough to prevent bullying. So in 2006, the Finnish Ministry of Education and Culture mandated our research group to develop an evidence-based bullying prevention program. And that's when we started to develop KiVa. And of course, we had already done a lot of research on the topic. So we didn't need to start from the scratch. There was also a previous small-scale intervention that we had tested in 2000. So we had something to build on. Today, KiVa is used widely in Finnish schools that provide basic education. That means grades 1 to 9, students 7 to 16 years old. And it's also implemented in about 20 other countries. The components of KiVa, we have universal actions and indicated actions. And the core of universal actions are the student lessons and materials that are involved in these lessons. This means that students have regularly lessons with their teacher in their classroom about topics that are related to peer group, about respectful behavior of everyone, about bullying and what everyone could do to tackle this problem. There are also different video films and other materials accompanied by these lessons. These are the KiVa manuals. Altogether, we have 3 different units. Here you can see the elementary school manuals, units 1 and 2. So we have altogether 3 different versions of the student lessons, and they are meant for different age groups. There are different activities in the KiVa lessons, group discussions, everyone in the classroom together, discussions in small groups, different learning by doing activities, booklet assignments, and short films that are watched together and discussed. And in these lessons, students are learning about emotions, about respect, also about peer pressure in general, why we go along with what our peers are doing and how we could resist peer pressure, and about safe school environment. Also, the lessons aim to create awareness of how the group might maintain and fuel bullying. So the students are told about the different participant roles, and they are encouraged to think what their own role is when they witness bullying. We also try to enhance empathy among the students, but also provide them with safe strategies to support peers who are victimized. I show you some examples of the KiVa materials. This is from the first graders material for 7-year-old children. These are emotion cards that are used in the KiVa lessons to discuss different types of emotions and about the different situations where we can feel joy or anger or sadness or fear, etc. And these are used in several lessons just to learn to talk about emotions. For instance, how we feel today when we come to school and why do we feel that way. And then later on in the lessons, these emotion cards are used to discuss how someone who is victimized by peers might feel, how it can lead to sadness or fear or shame, embarrassment or anger, and so on. So this way we are trying to teach the young children about how it feels to be bullied. There are also fictional stories that are used to aim this, to raise this awareness about how it feels to be bullied among students. And then besides the fictional stories, there are also real stories. So we have video clips, we have interviewed adults who used to be bullied when they went to school, and they are talking about their school days and how they felt about this negative treatment and how it still affects their life. And we have heard from teachers that some students, when they listen and watch these videos, they are really sad, and they are really surprised that these adults, for whom it has been so many years since they went to school, and they still remember these things, and they almost cry when they talk about these memories. So also this is to raise awareness that bullying can really hurt you, and this hurt, it's not only at the moment when it happens, but it can you can still remember it, and it can still hurt you many, many years later. There are different exercises in the KiVa lessons, trying to make the private attitudes visible. For instance, there is the picture of the line exercise, where the students find their place in this line according to their attitudes about bullying. Excuse me. And also different small group discussions and reflections. And providing safe strategies to support victimized peers. For instance, this is an activity called 3-card shuffle, and there the students are creating different imaginary bullying situations, and then they are trying to find solutions, what we could do if we witness this kind of bullying situation. Besides these student lessons, there are online anti-bullying games. And these games are closely connected to the student lessons. There are 3 components or elements in these online games that are called I know, I can, and I do. The I know component is about repeating and testing what you have learned during the student lessons. So the same topics come again up in the game, and the students can really remember and rehearse again what they learned, and they can even test what they have learned. So the point is that when students know that there is this kind of component in the game, they are also more likely to pay attention to the student lessons. In I can component, they are learning to take actions. So their students go on in a virtual school, they have their own avatar, and they come to different types of bullying situations that they witness, and they have to decide what they say or do. And in the I do component, students actually reflect on their own behavior. For instance, how they have done with following the rules that were put together in the student lessons. And they also get feedback based on their own behavior. Here are some scenes of the online game. For instance, this is about how it feels to be bullied, and there the player gets a letter from a classmate who has been bullied, and here the classmate is telling the player how scary and how bad it feels to come to school when such things happen. This is another scene from the online game. This is from Unit 2 now, so this is for 10-year-old students. So here the player who has created their own avatar first, they can go around in the virtual school and they see bullying situations, and then they have to choose what they say or do in these situations. And then, as you can see, there are thought bubbles, what the other students looking at the situation are thinking, and what the victimized child is thinking in the situation. There is also a virtual mailbox in the online game, So this is the virtual letter that you can send, and this goes to your school's KiVa team, which is a team of adults that is responsible for tackling the cases of bullying, addressing bullying that has been detected. And they can, while they are playing the game, they can use this virtual mailbox to send a message, and this goes to the adults so that they can address bullying. And not only they can report if they are bullied themselves, but they can also report if they have seen someone else in the schools being bullied by others. We have materials for parents. There is a newsletter to parents that the schools can upload and send, giving parents information about the KiVa program. We have a parents guide, which can be found online, and also it can be purchased as a printed version. And we have material for schools when they organize a back-to-school night for parents to discuss bullying and the KiVa program. And our message is really not only to the parents of victimized child or the parents of the bullies, but to all parents. And this key message is that even if your children are neither being bullied nor bullying others, they may be involved in other ways. So we encourage all parents to discuss these topics at home as well. So the same message which is given in the school also will be delivered at home. What to do if you see someone being bullied. We have also posters to be put on the walls in the school and visible vests for persons who are supervising the recess time. In Finland, the recess time is supervised by teachers. In some other countries, they may be other adults. So that was the universal actions in KiVa, but then we have indicated actions, and as you might remember, indicated actions are meant to address the cases of bullying that are detected at school. And for this purpose, there is a KiVa team in each school, and it consists of the adults in that school. They have been provided with training and detailed guidelines about how to address the cases of bullying and to make bullying stop. In many schools, the KiVa team consists of 3 adults, but in some larger schools, there may be more than 1 KiVa teams. And we have guidelines for indicated actions, and it's really an intervention process which consists of several steps. First, a meeting with the child who has been victimized, then individual and group meetings with the bullying children, a meeting with some pro-social classmates who might be able to support and help the victim, and then maybe after some weeks, follow-up meetings to ensure that bullying has really stopped. There is the first follow-up meeting with the victimized child, where the adults ask how the situation has been developing, whether bullying has stopped, and then the follow-up with the bullied students, with the students who had bullied. Besides these universal and indicated actions, there is a regular monitoring of the bullying situation in the own school. So each year, the school students and also staff members can fill in online surveys, and schools get school-based feedback on their own situation. This is an example of one page in the feedback. So each school gets trend data, as you can see here, about how their situation has been changing, for instance, whether bullying has been decreasing, and how their own situation is similar or different from the other schools that are implementing the KiVa program. They also get to know of the proportion of students who are victimized in their schools in different grade levels. And there is a comparison again to other schools who are implementing the KiVa program. We also give feedback on other things such as school well-being, learning motivation, and so on. So the feedback actually is several pages long. Then some words about the effects of the program. So we started to study the effects of the program already in 2007, when we had the first unit ready, and then the next year we did another evaluation study. And this was a very large randomized control trial, which means that the schools who volunteered to be part of the study were randomly assigned either to KiVa schools or comparison schools or control schools. So we had schools that were randomly classified either to KiVa group or the control group. And this way we could compare if there will be any changes in bullying or victimization in KiVa schools, how that differs from what has happened during 1 year in the comparison schools that didn't implement the program yet. We found very positive effects. We found significant reductions in bullying and victimization, but also positive effects on many other things, such as school liking and academic motivation of the students. And here you can see the changes that happened in the different forms of bullying. We were curious whether bullying will, for instance, go more online into cyberspace if it's prevented effectively at school. But this did not happen. So all these bars, because they go below 0 on the minus side, they mean that each of these 9 forms of victimization was reduced in KiVa schools as compared with changes that happened during 1 year in control schools. So just during the first year, we were able to reduce all 9 types of victimization in KiVa schools. We also found that KiVa influenced bystander emotions, cognitions, and behaviors. And of course, this was one of our aims because we were really focusing on bystander behaviors. We found increased empathy. We found stronger anti-bullying attitudes, stronger efficacy beliefs related to defending the victims, and stronger efforts to defend the victims, and decreased reinforcing and assisting the bully. So the bystanders were influenced in the ways that we wanted to influence them. Our colleague in the United States, Anne Williford, made a study in 2011 because she was interested on mental health. And she found that in KiVa schools, the program reduced students' social anxiety levels, and it also had a positive impact on their perceptions of the peer climate. In another study, we found positive effects on school liking and academic motivation. And of course, all these changes are relative to the changes that happened in the control schools that did not use the KiVa program yet. We also found some effects on teachers. First of all, children's perceptions of their teachers' attitudes and teachers' ability to reduce bullying was improved. So students started to think that their teachers are really strongly against bullying, and students also started to feel that teachers are able to reduce bullying more than before. Teachers themselves also evaluated their own competence to address bullying better in KiVa schools in comparison to the control schools after 1 year of implementing the program. We also did separate studies on the indicated actions of KiVa, and this means the KiVa teams and the cases of bullying that they addressed with the discussions with students involved. And as many as 98% of the students who had been victimized felt in the follow-up meeting that their situation had changed into better. And for 78%, bullying had stopped completely. In 2009, after the positive effects, KiVa was launched nationwide. So we really offered it to all schools in Finland. And very soon, in the first years, we had more than 90% of the Finnish basic education schools implementing the program. And here you can see how the proportions of students who reported that they were bullied or who reported that they were bullying others started to go down year after year. So the more years the schools had implemented the KiVa program, the smaller were the proportions of students who were victimized or who bullied others. And actually now we saw the same change also in the National School Health Promotion Study, which is not done by us, but by the National Institute for Health and Welfare. And it was found that even though the proportion of students who were victimized had been increasing during the first years of the 2000. In 2009, when KiVa was launched nationwide, these curves finally started to decrease. And here you can see several figures that are all based on middle school data on grades 8 to 9, because these are the grade levels where very many different surveys have been done. And you can see what happened after 2009 in the prevalence of students who have reported that they bully others at school. And whatever survey we look at, we can see that the proportion of students bullying others was really steeply decreased during the 10 years. Of course, what is really important is how the program is implemented. So I often say to the teachers that KiVa is only a tool. So it's like a vacuum cleaner. You can buy a very effective vacuum cleaner from the shop and bring it to your home because your home is dirty and you want to clean it. But if you bring it to your home is not becoming clean unless someone switches on the vacuum cleaner and starts to do the work. And in the same way, KiVa is just a tool, and even if there is evidence of its efficacy, and even if the schools adopt a program, this does not ensure that bullying will disappear if teachers will not implement the program as intended, and also continue to do so over longer periods of time. And I think the vacuum cleaner is a very nice analog here because, you know, also with vacuum cleaner, it's not enough that you do the work once and then you think that, okay, now the home is clean, but you have to do it again after some days or at least next week and again next week. And in the same way, we have to sustain our prevention efforts, and we have to sustain our tackling of bullying. We have also been studying the implementation of KiVa, and we have found that the quality of implementing the program is associated with the outcomes obtained. So the more the teachers are doing the student lessons, the more time they devote to preparing them and so on, the more the levels of victimization and bullying go down. We have also found that support from the school principal is really crucial. So that really predicts how well the teachers will implement the program. So in Finland, we have tried to support schools in high quality implementation of the program, and we have found many ways to do this. We provide them with pre-implementation training when they adopt the program. We provide face-to-face courses, but also online training courses. Our manuals are quite detailed, so it's easy for teachers to do the student lessons, for instance, because there are these ready-made lesson plans. We send newsletters to KiVa schools 4 times every year. The KiVa schools in Finland get a newsletter from us. And in those newsletters, we share our recent findings from our research, but we also remind them that, hey, now the new school year is starting, it's time to start implementing the KiVa lessons and so on. Several times we have organized KiVa days in Turku, where we have invited school personnel from schools that are implementing the program so that they can meet, they can share their experiences, they can learn from each other, and so on. And just before COVID in 2019, we did KiVa on the road tour. And that meant that our trainers traveled around Finland, they went to different municipalities, and they gave training to the schools there. We organize webinars, and we also provide schools with consultation on difficult cases. And what is now very new, we have started a new mentoring program, which is called IMPRESS, Implementation Research. And there we are providing some volunteering schools, mentoring. Our mentors go to the schools several times during the year, and they are trying to help schools with high quality implementation of KiVa. And we are also doing research whether we can improve the implementation quality with this mentoring program and how that shows in the levels of bullying and victimization in the school. So KiVa is widely implemented in Finland, but it's also implemented and evaluated in very many other countries. And here you can see a list of countries. Many of these are from Europe, but we also have New Zealand there, we have Chile, and so on. And actually, there are some most recent countries that have joined that are not yet in this list. But this has been really rewarding to see that so many schools in so many countries have wanted to implement the KiVa program. And actually now there is also research from outside of Finland. First we had only the Finnish evaluation trials, but after that positive results have been reported from other stringent randomized control trials. For instance, in Italy, Anna Laura Nocentini and Ersilia Menesini studied the effects of KiVa, and they found very good effects. I think actually that even a bit larger effects than we obtained in Finland. Also in the Netherlands, I think Netherlands is the country where there are most KiVa schools after Finland. And in the Netherlands, Huijs-Houtsing published some years ago a study where they wanted to replicate our large-scale study. And also that study showed that KiVa was effective in reducing bullying and victimization. There have also been so-called cost-effectiveness studies. This means that you compare the costs or the investments that are put into the program with the benefits, monetary benefits. And this can be calculated, for instance, by looking at reductions in victimization and how much consequently you can reduce, for instance, mental health problems or school dropout or that kind of problems, and you can monetize such outcomes. And those cost effectiveness studies have shown that investing in the KiVa program really pays off. We want to think about the KiVa program as not only a program, but more as a global community of researchers in different countries, partner organizations, KiVa trainers, and KiVa schools. And we also want to develop our materials continuously to ensure safe learning environment for all students. And this development is done based on our studies that we do continuously, but also they are based on feedback that we receive from KiVa schools. And this is one of the nicest thank you messages that we have received. This is from Chile, and a student who had been in a KiVa school in our evaluation trial there, and who says thanks to everyone. And the student has drawn the KiVa logo. And if you want to learn more about the KiVa program, I advise you to look in our Facebook site, KiVa Anti-Bullying Program, or there is also a website, kivaprogram.net, where you can find a lot more information on the program. And I want to thank you very much for listening, and I'm very happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Professor Salmivalli, for such a systemic presentation. And our Q&A session is going to be started with the comments by our participants. Super. Thank you very much for this clear and precise presentation with the examples. And the evidence-based approach is what we really like. Thank you very much to the presenter and to the organizers for inviting and giving the opportunity to listen. This is a real systemic approach. So, indeed, we have a few questions about this evidence-based program. The first question is about the structure. The structure of the program says about the classes that are integrated in the curriculum. So the question is, who teach this? Special pedagogues, special teachers, special staff, or this is an additional task for the ordinary teachers who study this and who can teach this?
Okay, thank you for the question. Well, yes, these student lessons are really included in the normal curriculum, and the contents are in accordance with the national core curriculum, because actually all these topics, or many of these topics, are something that schools should be teaching anyway. And of course, because school law in Finland and the national core curriculum states that each school needs to have some kind of action plan to prevent bullying. So this can be a tool, this can be an action plan for schools, so they can do what they are already asked by law to do. Most often these lessons are delivered by their own classroom teachers. So in the elementary school in Finland, that means grades 1 to 6, even though there can be several teachers teaching the classes, they have their own homeroom class teacher. And usually it's the homeroom teacher who is delivering the lessons. And also in the secondary or middle school, it is the group teacher delivering the lessons. Of course, in some schools, adults can make arrangements. There can be a special education teacher who is willing to deliver the lessons to many classrooms. But I would say that even though we also provide training for schools and teachers, the manuals are so detailed that the training is not even necessary, because in the manuals we have very clear lesson plans. We have all the materials, activities, so the teachers can really follow the lesson plans and deliver the lessons even without profound training.
Thank you very much. There's one more question. Who is part of the KiVa team at school? Are these additional specialists, or again, these are the ordinary teachers from school?
Thank you for the question. Yes, also in KiVa team, they are the ordinary teachers. They can also be special education teachers. There can be the principal involved if they want. So each school decides who are the adults working at school who will be part of the KiVa team. And in many schools, the school compensates in some way for this extra effort. For instance, the teachers who are in the KiVa team can get a small gain in their salary for this extra thing, because often these discussions, these intervention discussions are done during either during or after the regular school hours. But yes, KiVa teams can consist of only teachers. There can be one or more special education teachers. There can be a principal. There can be a school psychologist, and so on. Schools are using different combinations of people.
Thank you very much. There's another question. Diagnostic toolkits for monitoring. As we understand, this has been designed. Can we have a look at it somewhere? Or what this diagnostics is about?
Well, the diagnostics are really about the school's situation. So, first of all, there is the student survey. So each student in the school logs into this survey every year, every spring, actually in March. So very soon we will have this year's survey. And each student is asked a series of questions online, and they respond to these questions. And as the result, the school gets feedback where they can see how many students in our school have experienced bullying, how many students in our school have taken part in bullying others. Also, of those who have been victimized, the school gets the information, how long it has been going on, whether these children have told anybody. The school also gets information on how the students perceive the school climate in their school, how the students perceive the teachers' attitudes about bullying, what the students think, how much the teachers have done to stop bullying, whether students think that teachers are able to stop bullying. Also, we ask whether the students liked the KiVa lessons, and so on. And then there is another survey for school personnel or staff. And there we ask how many lessons they gave, how many bullying cases were addressed by the KiVa team, and so on. So the schools get feedback on how the students see the school, but they also get feedback on how much we have implemented the program in comparison to other KiVa schools. And then they also see how these situations have changed over time since they started to implement the KiVa program. So they don't only get the numbers for this year, but also 10 years before, for instance, if they were part of KiVa for 10 years. And they can see how the situation has evolved. Maybe they also will get to know that, oh, we have implemented the student lessons much less than other schools, so maybe we should try to do better, and so on. So it's not really a diagnostics of any individual child, and each child responds this survey anonymously, so they are not asked about their name, but they can anonymously answer, and it's more diagnostics about the school than about any individual student.
Thank you very much. This is a very interesting practice. And there's a question about training teachers to run the KiVa program, whether the knowledge and skills of the KiVa program are included in the part of the curriculum of the teaching universities for teachers, approaches to teachers, and the understanding of dynamics of development of youth classes. Can those things be integrated in the curriculum of pedagogy universities, or can they be included?
I think it would be great if it would be included. Some of these topics are, of course, included, but I would say that not enough. So even in Finland, still teachers in their education do not get enough information of bullying and about how to prevent it and how to tackle it. And that's why we need these kind of programs like KiVa, which are like extra training and extra resources for teachers. I think it would be ideal if all teachers could get this information as part of their training to become teachers. Also abroad, outside of Finland, the teachers are trained separately for KiVa. So the system is so that here at the University of Turku, we organize twice every year a training for trainers. So our partner organizations from other countries send people to Turku to be trained as KiVa trainers. And then these KiVa trainers, when they go back to their countries, they train the schools in those countries. And of course, now because of COVID, this training has been organized online for several years rather than everyone traveling to Finland. But I think in the future, we try to organize one online training and one on-site training every year.
Thank you very much. And the follow-up question is about the following. Our people are very interested how to become a member of the KiVa school communities. What is the procedure to join the community and how to buy the program? Please describe step by step what should be done by countries or schools if they want to become a part of the KiVa community.
Thank you for the question. Well, we always need an organization in the country that wants to be our partner. So we are not just selling the program to any school. We get a lot of requests from schools all around the world, you know, whether they can just buy the KiVa manuals or the KiVa program. But unfortunately, it's a bit more, well, I don't know if it's, let's say that this would be very complicated if we would just make the translation and sell the program as such to all the countries. We want there to be a partner organization in the country because we want that there is organization that provides training and support for the schools, because that's the only sustainable way. If we just send our manuals to an individual school, it's not likely to be very sustainable implementation. So we want, that's the first thing, that there should be a partner organization. And we have different partner organizations in different countries. They can be ministries, they can be university spin-offs, they can be, even we have publishing houses as our partners, or some other private organizations, or we have NGOs, non-governmental organizations that are our partners. And these partner organizations make a contract with the University of Turku, and then it's kind of licensing agreement, and then the partners can send their trainers to our training, and we prepare the materials depending on the country, depending on the language that is needed. We have, of course, many different language versions, but not all possible languages. So sometimes it takes time, of course, to make all the translation and materials and so on.
And there's another follow-up question. Do you have the program in Russian already translated?
I think we do have it in Russian because Estonian schools, Estonia has been our partner for a long time, and there are many Russian-speaking schools in Estonia. So yes, I'm pretty sure that we have it in Russian already.
Thank you. I believe our participants will be thinking of this. We have many representatives of universities from various countries, and this procedure is clear. Thank you for explaining. There's another question. This is in general about the development of juvenile justice in Finland and its role in preventing bullying. Distinguished Christina, we know that Finland has a developed system of juvenile justice. This system monitors families and relations, social relations between adults and children. Whether the juvenile system looks at bullies, whether they monitor them, and whether the bullies and his or her family are administratively or criminally liable for perpetrating bullying. Please explain your landscape.
Okay. So let's first start by saying that bullying as such is not a crime, because it's not a crime to be mean to someone, and we can't always legally regulate all sorts of behaviors. Sometimes people are mean to each other, but of course sometimes bullying can have forms that are criminal. For instance, physical violence, of course, is a crime. Also online you can do many crimes, reveal some insulting information, or threat can be a crime, and so on. In Finland, there is the age limit. Is it 15 or 16? I think it's 15, and if you are under 15, you can't be accused or you can't be convicted for any crime. But instead, it's the how you say, social services, child services that will be informed. So let's say that if there is someone under 15 years who has bullied a peer, and if the parents, for instance, or the school makes an announcement to the police that a crime has happened, then the police always contacts the social services, who will be in contact with the family. And in this way, they are thinking what kind of help the child or the family need. So this is the procedure, and in some cases, such announcements are being done to police. Also, sometimes police can collaborate with the schools in addressing these cases, or a police can come to school to talk about bullying and how it can fulfill the criteria of crime in some cases. Also, in our KiVa lessons, we have video films of policeman who is explaining in the short film how bullying can be criminal behavior, and also there is a video of a police talking about online bullying and how we should behave online, and that the same laws apply to online that apply to offline context. So this is what I can say. I hope this responded the question. But let's say that the police, especially when young people are involved, and the police gets to know about the severe case of bullying and gets an announcement for that, then they also always, in every case, they are in contact with the social services.
Thank you very much. There's a question, which is the follow-up. If we want to partner with you, if we want partnership with you, whom shall we contact? I believe that on your website you have this information if we want to become a partner or to buy your license.
Yes, in the website kivaprogram.net, there is a contact form, and this is how you can contact us. It goes to our unit, KiVa International. I am myself not so much involved in that, but there are very good people taking care of that.
Thank you very much. This is certainly a very interesting job, and indeed, the more our countries apply this program, the more happy people and children we will have at the end. And I think I have been thinking about the following. For a few number of years, Finland has been considered the country with the happiest people on earth. And when we travel to Finland, when you go to your schools, we always ask and we tell our visitors, well, our main purpose is to identify why people in Finland believe that they are the happiest. And it has always been difficult for me and for the visitors to identify why, but today I can bridge this gap thanks to this meeting with you, because I understand that the KiVa program also puts its input into this happiness, because when people understand this, and this is very important to understand how difficult it must be to another person if you act wrong, if you say wrong, and if such empathy is on a national scale, this is great. So thank you very much for developing this program. Thank you very much to your team. Professor Salmivalli, please let us wish you sound health, your program to flourish, and for this program to always generate new studies, research, new dimensions for this program to develop and to bring benefits to as many teachers, parents, and children as possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.